I feel the Spirit moving in me. I feel the Spirit moving in me.
You ever been moving along, driving along, thinking that everything is great? You know, feeling peaceful and poised, and then splat! Something happens. Life hits you with something messy, something inconvenient, and something unexpected. Ever happened to you? A couple of you. Well, a few years ago, back in 2004, more than a few, I was a senior minister at Unity Christ Church in St. Louis. And it was a beautiful summer morning, and I was driving to church, thinking about speaking about, because it was actually the day of July 4th, thinking about independence and thinking about gratitude and just giving thanks. And in fact, I was singing the song, I am free, I am unlimited. There are no chains that bind me. Right? Remember that song? We've all sung it. Yes, Janet Manning. And it was a great day because I had on my favorite suit at the time. I had on my favorite Jerry Garcia $50 tie, right? And I am ready to roll. I am happy. I am grateful. And I went to take a sip of my coffee, and the top came off. And it went all over me, all over my tie, all over the dashboard of my car. And I looked down, and I'm like, I can't say what I said. Well, you can imagine what I said. And I was like, ah! And then I looked up, and the traffic had stopped. Dead stop, like 20 yards in front of me, right? And so there was not enough time to stop. And so I'm like, what do I, in the second, I'm like, what do I do, right? And there was an off-ramp. And so, mind you, I'm going 60 or 65 miles an hour, right? And so either I'm crashing into these people or I'm taking a chance and taking the off-ramp. So I zoomed off the off-ramp, going down, 60 miles an hour to a stop sign. And I'm like, I stopped. And I'm like, oh my God, looking at all this stuff. And so I made a right turn, and I ran into the back of a 4th of July parade. Right? And, I'm like in the parade, right? And I'm waving at Uncle Sam, and, I'm feeling like sticky and smelling like coffee. And I'm thinking, I'm going to be late for church. And here there are bands and floats and a Unity minister covered with a lovely cup of coffee that he had. And so needless to say, I showed up late for church. And coffee all over me on my $50 tie. And I'm like, oh my God. And everyone welcomed me. They hugged me. They told me they loved me. And I decided I can choose how I feel about this. Right? I could stay stuck in the frustration. I could stay stuck in the stickiness of that moment. But instead, I said, okay, here I am. I made it. I didn't crash my car. I took a breath, and they just loved on me. And I said, thank you, God, for this mess. Because it brought me back to the present moment. Back to my purpose, why I was there. And in the midst of it all, feeling the joy of being with people that I loved. Much the same way when I come in here and feel your love. And, it wasn't the morning I planned. It was better, right? Because it was real, right? All of us we are present right now and being grateful for what we had in that moment. Wow. I literally found gold in the gravel. And that gravel wasn't like you might expect. It was hot, and it was sticky, and it ruined my favorite tie. Because what it taught me, though, is that gratitude is the alchemy that transforms gravel into gold. Right? We aim for a smooth highway. We aim to enjoy a nice cup of coffee. And sometimes it leads us to a gravel road, ones that slow us down enough to be aware of the scenery, to be aware of what we have in that moment. Gratitude is the alchemy that transforms gravel into gold. Say that with me. Gratitude is the alchemy that turns gravel into gold. Gravel into gold. And that's what we're talking about today. In Unity, let's say affirmation again. Let's say it together. I give thanks for the good I can see and for the greater good still unfolding. Imagine having that as your attitude about life. To be grateful for the gratitude that is unfolding, regardless what the gravel looks like. Regardless of how you feel. You have the ability to change your consciousness, and that's what we're talking about today. How can we find the gold in the gravel? In Unity, we learned that thoughts held in mind produce after their kind, right? What we think about creates our experience. And it's the same with gratitude. Gratitude doesn't always change what happens, but how we see what happens. Do you see the difference? Gratitude doesn't always change what happens, but it changes how we, say it with me, how we see what happens. And that's a miracle. Of course, miracles say that's a miracle because we're changing our perception. We're changing the way we see our situation. When we choose gratitude, we move out of resistance into receptivity. Get that? When we choose gratitude, we stop resisting what's happening and open ourselves to being receptive to what's in the moment. What is this that's happening trying to teach me? Rather than, oh darn, I'm upset because this is happening. What can I learn from this that's happening? In the Bible it says, in everything give thanks. Does that mean give thanks for everything? It doesn't. It doesn't. It says, in everything give thanks. Regardless of what is happening, give thanks for what is happening. Right? It changes our resistance into acceptance. And that's where the miracle happens. Right? Gratitude doesn't depend on the conditions of life. It depends on the condition of our consciousness. I'll say that again. Gratitude doesn't depend on the condition of our life. It depends on the condition of our consciousness. It's how we frame our experience. Because stuff happens, right? You ever notice? Stuff happens, right? And we get to determine, how am I going to react to this? Am I going to say, oh, darn, I'm a victim? Or am I going to say, okay, this is what's happening. How can I stand in my truth in the midst of this thing that might hurt, might feel painful, might be tragic? How can I find the blessing in it? You might remember Myrtle Fillmore, Unity's co-founder. She was diagnosed with tuberculosis and told that she probably wouldn't live very long. Somebody didn't follow instructions. But that's good. We're long on forgiveness, and we're grateful that your phone's working. So Myrtle Fillmore had tuberculosis. And instead of focusing on tuberculosis, she focused on the good and the healing and what was well in her body. And she prayed and affirmed and gave thanks to every cell, every space, every tissue, every thought, every experience that she was having. And in 2 years, that tuberculosis was totally gone. Because she focused on the truth and not the circumstance. She blessed every cell in her body and give thanks for it. When we bless instead of curse, when we praise instead of panic, the vibration of our lives changes. And so does the outcome. Gratitude literally rewires our brains. It rewires our thinking. It rewires our experiences. It rewires the way we show up in our lives. It activates the prefrontal cortex, the center of joy and calm and peace and resilience. And it reduces stress hormones. Anybody like to have less stress hormones? Maybe practicing gratitude. Rick Hansen says, what fires together, wires together. Right? Every time we choose gratitude, we strengthen the neural pathways in our brain. We strengthen the pathways of peace, of joy, of love. Every time we're grateful. Every time we give thanks for what's happening, for what is, we strengthen those pathways. We're teaching our brain a new way of being. So gratitude isn't just good manners like our parents taught us. It's a practice that develops new pathways, makes us strong, makes us resilient, makes us loving, makes us joyful. It is something we can do even when life feels gritty. So how can we practice gratitude? How can we find gold in the gravel? Interested? Okay. I got 5 ways, of course. So the first thing we do, and we talk about this a lot, I think I mentioned this last week too, it's so important, is to pause before you react. Right? And the more you do this, the more you'll see that you have the ability to, because you're conditioning again your brain, your body, your mind, and to be connected to your spirit. And when something happens that triggers you, you have a choice. You have like a 2-second choice. You can scream and yell and curse and throw stuff. Or you can say, wait a minute. Let me pause. Let me open to my soul, to my spirit, to my truth. Let me be present, right? When we pause and take a breath, we're present. You're present right now. And this is where spirit lives. This is where your heart lives. This is where your joy and your peace lives. When you pause, you move from panic to presence. From panicking to being present in the moment. And presence is where God shows up. This is where you, your higher self, your truth shows up in that pause. And the second thing we can do is ask the golden question. What good can come from this? You see how that changes what's happening? Instead of looking for what tragedy can happen from this, what good can come from this? This changes our consciousness instantly. The question doesn't demand an answer, but it invites one. It invites us to look a little deeper than the panic. It invites us to look inside to find where is the peace. It invites us to say to God, to the universe, what is the deeper understanding here? I'm open to a higher view. What is the higher view? When we ask that question, we begin looking for the blessings instead of disaster. And the next thing we can do is name the hidden blessing. Right? Perhaps that tragedy, that difficult situation, leads you to experiencing somebody new. Perhaps somebody new comes in your life. Perhaps it introduces you to a part of yourself that you need to be with, that place of peace, that person of love, that Christ essence that is the truth of who you are. You know, when we ask the question, when we name that hidden blessing, we anchor ourselves in truth rather than turmoil. And the next thing we can do, and this takes a little practice, is to bless the lesson, right? Even to bless the thing that's hard, right? Because what happens when we bless it? What happens? You know. It's just, yeah, and it lowers our resistance, right? It lowers our resistance so we can be present to whatever the gift is that's in the lesson. Right? When we say, I bless this, we align ourselves with divine order. We align ourselves with the truth of who we are, with our essence, with our joy, with our peace, with that which we're here to experience as spiritual beings having a physical experience. Lots of times stuff happens, we react. Why? It's almost like Spirit is saying, oh, you're on a spiritual path. Well, how about learning from this? Right? And when we bless the things that challenge us, we get our power back. Right? Because all of a sudden, we are in it. We are powerful. We are saying, I'm going to manage this. I'm going to be present in this. I'm going to create something good out of this. We stop asking life to be easy and asking ourselves to be awake, to wake up. Something good is happening here. Even if I can't see it yet, something good is happening in every difficult situation, even though we can't see it. But being aware of it, again, lessens our resistance so we can be present to what it is. In a sense, we're choosing the direction that our energy is going to flow. And the last thing is give thanks anyway, right? This is the ultimate alchemy. And, I think I'm remembering back, and somebody told me years ago, if we got up in the morning and said, thank you, God, thank you, universe, thank you for this day, it opens us up to the fullness that we can be. Right? If we're in a difficult situation, if we can say, thank you for this. Thank you for this anyway. Again, it changes our perception. It's a declaration of faith that opens us up to that which wants to be known by us. And even say it when you don't mean it. Right? Yeah, because it's like you got some resistance. I'm not going to say thank you for this. Ever feel that way? Right? Say thank you anyway. Right? Because again, we're conditioning our mind to respond to spirit and to be thankful regardless of what's happening. When we say thank you in advance, we become the alchemist who is putting this potion of consciousness, of love into action so that we can experience the fullness of who we are. We are literally turning our consciousness into gold. And the truth is, in the universe, on this planet, does the earth know the difference between gravel and gold? From a consciousness level, does it? It doesn't know, right? There is no difference. It's all gold. Everything is gold. So let's take a breath together, and I invite you, we're just going to do a short kind of guided reflection here. So I invite you to close your eyes if you'd like. Take a breath. And think of a moment, a situation in your life that feels like gravel right now. Something rough, something uncomfortable, something uncertain. It could be a person, a situation. Something that feels like you're in the rough. And imagine that you can hold this situation in your hands. Perhaps even to gesture that, to put your hands in a holding position. And imagine that you're holding this thing that's difficult, this person, this relationship, this task. And take a breath. And you might even ask, what good can come from this? I bless this. I know that this opportunity, this person, this challenge, this task is the universe handing me what appears to be gravel so that it can be turned into gold. Let's just hold this thought for a moment. Breathing, blessing, giving thanks for this. Even here, even now, something good is unfolding in me. Even here, even now, something good is unfolding in me. Affirm that with me. Even here, even now, something good is unfolding for me. I invite you to set this down somewhere where you can pick it up in a moment and take it home with you. And then I invite you to open your eyes when you're ready. There's a story that I like about a man named John Fouts. In 2018, John Fouts returned to his land. He was a farmer in Paradise, California, after the wildfire destroyed everything he owned. His home, his fences, his garden, his crops, gone. Everything turned to ashes. And he stood there, surrounded by devastation, wondering, how do I start again? What do I do from here? And he went out and he purchased a bunch of wildflower seed. And he spread it all over his property. Not because it would fix anything, but because he needed the color again. Hope again. Life again. He scattered those seeds across the charred earth. And months later, little green shoots started to come up. And then bursts of colors. And then the bees returned. And he said, I stopped trying to get back what I lost and started growing what wanted to be. Yeah. I stopped trying to get back what I lost and started growing what wanted to live. That's the alchemy of gratitude. Turning devastation into beauty, despair into renewal. Gratitude says, even here, in the ashes, in the gravel, I will plant something beautiful. So this week, I invite you to be a spiritual prospector. looking for glimmers of gold in the apparent gravel of your life. Be a gardener of grace, planting beauty wherever you are in your life. If something feels burned or charred or dead or gravel, plant wildflowers. Gratitude doesn't deny the difficulty, but it transforms our relationship with it. It's how we say yes to life. Yeah, you can spill my coffee. You can ruin my tie. You can delay my plans. You can burn my fields. But you cannot take away my ability to bless, to create, and to give thanks. That's how we turn gravel into gold. Let's say the affirmation together. I give thanks for the good I can see and for the greater good that is still unfolding. So, beloveds, may you walk this week with open eyes and an open heart. May gratitude be the sunlight that helps to brighten your soul. When life feels rough, may you remember the gold is already there, waiting to be revealed. And if you find yourself standing in gravel, plant some wildflowers. Because grace has a way of growing right where we thought life was over. And that's how we find the gold in the gravel. Namaste. Thank you. Well, with all that being said, anything else, dear friends? All right, why don't we stand and take a deep breath, breathing into this moment. And so we're going to pray the prayer for protection and then join together as a circle and sing the peace song. And so for ourselves, for this ministry, for all life, everywhere, let's pray together the prayer for protection, which begins, the light of God surrounds us, the love of God enfolds us, the power of God protects us, and the presence of God watches over us. Wherever we are, God is. God bless you, friends. Thank you out there on Facebook today.